Welcome to Turkish Series Stars, the channel where we lean into feelings, fractures, and the unguarded moments our favorite stars try to hide. Tonight, let me take you from the clamor of Istanbul's backstreets to the quiet courtyards of Rome, a path lit not by paparazzi flash, but by the glow of two people who keep choosing each other when the door shuts and the world falls away. At the center is a man audiences celebrate for his presence and resolve, yet beneath that polished calm lives a softness he rarely shows in public. I'm talking about Alp Navruz, and woven through his account, like a second heartbeat, is Alina. The words he let slip in his latest sit-down have rattled timelines and living rooms alike. Love is decided by how you feel once the lock clicks and it's only the two of you. Simple, disarming, and impossible to ignore. Why voice it now? Who was it meant for? And what does the silence between the words say about the life they're building? What unfolds isn't a monologue about roles or ratings. It's a blueprint of a private philosophy, etched by quiet, compromise, yearning, and the tender ache of wondering about parenthood. The childhood that formed the leading man's gentleness. Alp was born in Istanbul, yes, but if you think the city's roar alone chiseled his spirit, you'd be wrong. During the interview he holds up a faded snapshot, a 1-year-old with wide eyes, clutching a tiny comb like it was a lifeline. That comb, he explains, belonged to his grandfather. The old man always kept it tucked in his pocket, and whenever baby Alp cried, he would place it in those tiny hands. The tears would slow, then stop. A hush would descend. It sounds like a small ritual, but it maps where his tenderness began. In a simple exchange between a child and a guardian who knew that calm is something you pass on. Fans erupted online. "He's not only handsome, you can feel the goodness," someone wrote. "Now I see why heroic roles suit him, the heart comes first," another added. And who could argue? Behind the chiseled jaw is a man fluent in softness, a language learned long before scripts and spotlights. The side almost no one expects. Many still box him into the image of the unshakable alpha. The sure-footed romantic lead who claims the scene without lifting his voice. But when Alp speaks about himself, the archetype falls away. "I don't need to win a room," he says with a quiet laugh. "I'd rather choose peace. I'd rather choose kindness." With that, the public perspective tilts. Because the epic figure people anticipate him to play next, the fabled kind of man whose legend arrives before he does, won't roar for dominance in Alp's hands. He'll draw power from stillness, like a tide that lifts everything without showing its teeth. Listeners typed out what many were thinking: he just tore off the macho mask. The more he talks, the clearer it is that he's not a cliché, he's the answer to one. The confession you weren't ready for. Fame brings more than premieres. It brings planes, waiting rooms, glittering chaos. So when he said, gently, being alone can be a gift, it startled people? Not because it sounded sad, but because it sounded true. He didn't mean exile, not a bunker against love and life. He meant balance carved out of the frenzy, a boundary that lets him stay whole while the industry demands pieces. A fan posted, "He chooses solitude, but he never leaves us lonely. That's why we're here, always." And maybe that's the paradox: the more he speaks about stepping back, the more the audience leans forward. Then came the line that set the internet on fire. "If you can spend months behind closed doors with someone and keep laughing every single day, that's love." He said it calmly, like a truth he'd rehearsed with life, not lines. There was no mention of grand trips, no choreography for photographers, no staged affection. He was talking about kitchens and floors covered in scripts, about matching mugs and mismatched socks, about real life, the kind of daily closeness that either erodes you or makes you luminous. Comment sections bloomed. He spoke from the chest. "I melted," read one. "That's real love, not magazine love," another insisted. Some tried to pin the line on an old chapter, as if naming a ghost could make the meaning smaller. But more voices pressed for a different read. They saw Alina in every syllable. They pictured her in an oversized sweater, perched on a Roman windowsill, both of them laughing at a burned batch of pasta at midnight. In truth, the words felt bigger than gossip. They sounded like maturity given shape, the description of a bond that survives schedules and airports, the friction of two careers, and the tug of two cities that have each learned the contours of their lives. No barbs. No winks at the past. Just a definition that felt lived. The question he can't stop circling. He admits, almost shyly, that thoughts of a child visit him more often these days. The sweetness of a tiny hand wrapped around his finger. The shock of a first laugh that belongs to you but is also brand new. Then, with a softness that holds a shadow, he wonders aloud, what if the parents work in different places when it happens? If she's filming in one city and he's locked to another set, where does that child grow? What language sits easiest on their tongue? Turkish in grandmother's kitchen, maybe Italian from long shoots in Rome, maybe English from sets that never sleep. It isn't a hypothetical thrown at a wall. It's the math of a life that knows how much travel and ambition ask of a heart. It's dreaming out loud while acknowledging the maze. Replies tumbled in swiftly. He'd be a beautiful father, someone wrote. I can see him, smiling with a baby tucked into his chest, another added. And for a moment, you could almost hear a lullaby between the lines. The path that chose him as much as he chose it. He confesses he once thought he'd live on a pitch, not a set. Football was the dream until his body explained its limits with a blunt honesty only time can deliver. If I'd pushed it, he shrugs, maybe I would have been tucked away in some minor league. My heart would have wanted more than my legs could give. The clarity drew affection. He pivoted, studied, started over. He learned to build a career with his hands and his patience, not just his face. And in doing so, he became the man who can't cross a terminal without turning it into a rally. The airport felt like a concert, someone joked after spotting him by a gate surrounded by phones and nervous smiles. And yet, when the subject of beauty came up, he didn't climb onto a pedestal. Character is where beauty begins, he said simply. The rest is surface. It peels. Again, the unexpected answer, and again, hearts caught. A calm face in a restless world. During the Rome interview, they say he moved like a lake at dawn. No rushing, no evasion, no heavy armor. He looked the questions in the eye and answered like a man who had finally come to terms with the noise, a man who knew that quiet doesn't make you smaller, it makes you clear. Just hearing him speak is soothing, someone posted after watching. He's not performing, he's being. And maybe that's why the next role the industry expects from him, the kind of mythic figure people whisper about before the script drops, will strike differently. Not louder. Truer. Muscles can throw punches on screen, but honesty lands long after the credits. The man, the character, the piece he rebuilt. What's coming isn't only a warrior or a lover on paper. It's a human being who relearned how to walk softly even while the ground shook. It's someone who refuses to fear being alone, who looks for the love that lasts after the door clicks, who imagines tiny feet racing down a hallway he hasn't rented yet, and who stares at the future with an unhurried steadiness that only experience teaches. His line keeps echoing, if you can still giggle together when the house folds inward and the world is outside, that person is yours. You can hear the ache in his voice, a note that says the thought is not theory, it's hunger. It sounds like a letter addressed across a room to Alina, and at the very same time, like a promise he's made to himself. And behind all of it stands Alina, not as an accessory in a headline, but as a presence that changes the temperature of a room. She's the one who reads beside him while he learns a scene, the one who can turn an ordinary dinner into a memory with a single joke. Those months that he said could test anyone? They have lived versions of them already. Locked inside, learning each other's rhythms, turning a studio apartment into an island. She brings the daring lightness that cracks his seriousness, he brings the ground that steadies her flight. Together they learned that laughter is a muscle, if you work it, it carries you when everything else feels heavy. Their friends talk about how they vanish from a party not to hide, but to slip home, kick off shoes, and cook badly. Imagine them, splashed with sauce, laughing so hard the neighbors hear. That is the love he was describing. Not the staged kind, the survived kind. And yet the realities keep nipping at their heels. 2 careers mean 2 calendars. Istanbul wants them both. So does Rome, where the cameras have found corners of their days. When he wonders which city a child would call home, you can tell he isn't daydreaming alone. He's counting time zones and school calendars with her, trading what-ifs like secrets. They know fame carries applause, but also flight itineraries and guilt you can't post through. That's why solitude isn't exile for him, it's how he and Alina keep the edges soft so they can still fit together when the door swings shut. He protects their 4 walls as if they are sacred, because to them, they are. Say what you like about crowds. He draws them without trying. Airports, hotel lobbies, cobbled streets outside a Roman trattoria, wherever he goes, he makes a center of gravity. And yet you'd miss the point if you stopped at the spectacle. Watch how he looks for her hand in the surge. Watch how she tucks her hair behind her ear and leans in to whisper a joke, and his shoulders drop even when 50 phones stare. That is character, the kind he meant when he said beauty starts in the place no lens can photograph. That is what gives the next role its shape. You can't fake the weight of a private life that works. So when we circle back to that sentence, the one that refuses to leave your head, it lands differently the second time. It's not a quotation to print on a poster. It's a definition forged in living rooms and on balconies, in cold kitchens and under warm lamps, in cities that speak to them in 2 languages but house the same heartbeat. When he talks about the test of the closed door, we know he's been there, not theoretically, but literally, choosing the same person in all the dull hours where most stories fall apart. We know he isn't talking about a moment in a magazine, but about the invisible practice of showing up, again and again. So tell me, what do you hear in it? Is it a universal rule, a guide anyone can carry into the quiet of their own home? Or is it a line that belongs to these 2, a private compass spoken out loud by a man who has learned what sustains him and the woman who has helped him learn it? I want to know what you think. Because in the end, this isn't only about an interview or a role or even a dream of a child. It's about that little comb in a baby's hand and a grandfather who taught the lesson before words, that calm is given, love is practiced, and the truest life is lived where nobody is watching. Leave your thoughts below, and we'll meet again soon. See you in the next Turkish series stars video.